Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Babbling Irons channel. And the three of us have finally returned. It's been a while since we've done a trio video, but we're back for something that is a bit different. We haven't done a preview before. Obviously, ahead of the Man City game tomorrow, Premier League's back, all buzzing for it. But this time tomorrow, we might be thinking a little bit different. But yeah, nice to have you guys, Mike and Sloth, joining me as well. So let's just start with it, lads. Premier League's back. First game of the season. You guys excited?
Yeah, well, first off, welcome back, Frankie. It's good to have you back with the two of us. So it's good, mate. But yeah, new Premier League season. Let's be excited about it. It's a new season. It's not probably the start we would want because we've got City. But if we played like we did last time round, by all means, we can give City a game. A bit of an unknown quantity. Arguably, at the minute with the two strikers, the pre-season not been necessarily scintillating. The last game obviously wasn't great, but this is Man City in the Premier League. Those friendly games are exactly that. They are friendlies. Now it's the real thing, and I'm raring to go. At least we get the big boy out of the way at the start. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, we signed Cornet yesterday, which was a nice deal as well. That was all announced, but unfortunately, he's not going to be able to play this weekend. Just a little bit too late, as it was probably expected that late in the day on Friday. But Sloth, what are you most looking forward to about the Premier League being back in general, and what are you kind of excited to see from West Ham this season? Maybe we didn't see last season, or how it kind of compares.
I think I'm most looking forward to just actually getting back in the stadium. Like, I think that's probably every fan's main goal. I'm going tomorrow. I'm going with my dad and my brother as well. He doesn't normally come to the football, but family day out, a bit of a celebration, and I think just getting back in the stadiums, the atmosphere, and the kind of feel good vibe of having European football. That's probably the thing that I'm looking forward to the most. In terms of what's the second part?
Just going into this season, obviously we got to the semi-final of Europa League last season, finished 7th, and there's probably expectation from West Ham fans now to kind of consistently hit that top 7. So what do you want to see differently from last season?
I mean, I'd like to see a bit more rotation. Obviously, we've got the 5 subs coming in this season, which I think is going to be really important. But we kind of know Moyes doesn't really like to make too many changes. We've seen he likes a small squad, but I do think it's going to be really important this year. We've got so many more games than last year, and even last year we were saying we've got so many more games than the year before. So it's just, for me, I'd like to see that rotation, but I just kind of want to see the same spirit going into the games. It felt like last season, whenever we turned out, we tried to give 100%. Brighton game excluded. Let's not go over that. But whenever we turned out, it felt like we actually, especially against the big boys, it felt like we really went and gave 100%. So just looking forward to more of the same.
Yeah, I mean, just looking back at last season against Man City at home, we drew 2-2, went 2-0 up in the first half. So, Mike, what would you think that Moyes is going to take from that game and, try and apply it again to this situation? I know it's completely different because it's at 2 tail ends of the season, completely different, but there were certain things that we did on that day that really hurt City's back line. And can you see us kind of adopting a similar tactical mindset this time around?
Well, I think we know full well we're going to try and play compact. We're going to try and suffocate them in the centre and force them out wide. I think that is, without doubt, an absolute given. I know when you look at Haaland, you go, well, that's an aerial presence. But interestingly, he's never scored a header. That doesn't.
Wow.
Touch wood. That doesn't change. But considering all the goals he scored, he hasn't actually scored a header. So, when you look at the size of him, you would argue that, forcing him out wide is still the route to go, because it's then don't naturally, would you say, necessarily have a player that's going to score like that. So I think we're going to be quite compact. We're going to essentially look to filter them wide. We're not going to look to kind of allow them to come centrally. Now, obviously, this is Manchester City. They will find gaps and they will look to exploit them. But, we shouldn't necessarily be too concerned in some respects around, all of those things, because we can only do what we can do. We can only manage certain aspects. There's certain things that we are not going to have control over. What we do have control over is our shape, our discipline, and also I think what we showed last time against City is that there is maybe in the fullback position sometimes they kind of switch off to passes or diagonal runs, which obviously saw Bowen do well. Antonio obviously did quite well in that, particularly in the first half, where we just kind of came out of nowhere really and went 2-0 up. 2 shots on target as well, which was it was ridiculous. 2 shots on target, 2 goals, which isn't the usual kind of West Ham thing. But I think it's going to be a tough old slog. The good thing is it's the first game of the season. Everything is equal at this stage. City clearly want to make changes because they're still looking for a new left back. Obviously, their pursuit of Cucurella didn't pan out. They've obviously got the centre forward they want. So there's quite a bit of change because they've not got, like Raheem Sterling and things. So there's a lot of change there. There's even, Bernardo Silva could be going. So it's not necessarily settled. And also Gundogan as well. As another brilliant player that has led that team. Now, City have phenomenal players. I'm not saying that those players going is going to make City beatable necessarily. But those players leaving are huge players. And especially when you look at Gundogan, who's a big personality, he's a very big player in that team. So you kind of look at it and go, probably now is the time to play them whilst they're a bit unsettled. Maybe we're kind of readjusting to how things are. But the thing is, what we have to be, is like we were last time, we have to be clinical. When we get a chance, you can't miss. I know that sounds a ridiculous statement, but when you play City, when you get those kind of ended chances, you have to take them, because the moment you make a mistake, which we did against them, particularly obviously the penalty as well that we gave away, which was a silly penalty. It was a tired kind of tackle that gave away that penalty. So I'm not going to be harsh on Dawson. It was a mistake. We can't skirt away from that. But after a long season, it looked tired and laboured, that challenge, and which resulted in a penalty that obviously I think was the equaliser. So the problem is you can't make mistakes. It's so ridiculous when you're playing because you can't make mistakes. If you do, you are relying on someone else to bail you out of a mistake. And when you do get a chance, you need to be clinical. So it's always almost an impossible task sometimes to beat Man City, especially now obviously with 5 subs. So again, that's something else you need to contend with. That if the 5 are not performing, he can replace those 5 players and bring on 5 absolute quality players. And at the moment, when you look at our bench, we only really probably going to have, in terms of new signings, Flynn Downs. Obviously, I think there's maybe a little kidology around Scamacca saying he's not going to play because he's out of fitness, because he's not really played pre-season. But I can't imagine that we're not going to at least put him on the bench. So I think there's a little kidology there to keep them guessing as to whether he's going to play or not. But yeah, when you look at our bench, there's not necessarily the players that give you the confidence that if we need to deplete our bench and bring players on, we're going to have the necessary players to do so. That's just where we are at the moment. Things have not necessarily gone our way in the transfer market as much as we hoped to this point. It has been a good window, but it's not been the point where we maybe want it to be at this stage. So I think that's where we could struggle, is that when City look to essentially deplete that bench and run that bench out, is where we can then come a bit of a cropper if we're in the game and it's tight.
Yeah, I think from my point of view, I completely agree with the kind of transfers. Having Agerd and Scamacca and those kind of players available would have been a huge boost. But we played City twice at home last season, once in the cup. Obviously, kind of a second string team-ish, but we didn't lose on both occasions, and it's still the same squad as last year. We haven't lost anyone kind of important. Rice and Bowen still at the club. So I think there's that to build off. We've got the foundations. The players already know what they need to do to play a team like City. So Sloth, we saw Bowen last season score twice, play really well and really counteract their high line, they did have Fernandinho at the back, on that day, but they're still going to play a similar line. Laporte's out injured as well. So is that another area, again, we're just going to have to try and utilize, using Antonio as kind of the pivotal point, and then you have players like Bowen. We'll get into our predicted XIs in a minute, but whoever plays on the left, and how can you kind of see that playing out tomorrow?
I think Bowen and Antonio are going to be vital tomorrow. They really are. I am a little bit disappointed we haven't brought in more pace at this point in the window. I think that is a real kind of worry for me going forward, that, as much as I like Benrahma and he creates it, and I'd be quite happy moving other players on to let him kind of have either a bit more freedom or move him centrally with someone like Fornals and him fighting for that place. But I just think that, as Mike said, taking our chances is vital. And we kind of saw the counterpoint to that against Liverpool at Anfield, when Fornals had that great chance and missed it. And, that really kind of changed the face of the game, where we're then put on the back foot, and Liverpool's class just showed in the end. Watching the game today, again, they weren't particularly good, but they still scored 2 goals and got a point, and that's what makes top teams. So with regards to playing against City, I know they've got some injuries. I have no idea why on earth they would ever consider letting Gundogan or Bernardo Silva go. I think that's the stupidest thing they can do, because how do you replace those 2 players at the moment without spending an obscene amount of money? For me, City's transfer policies at the moment are a bit off. But who am I to criticise Man City? I think that's they probably earned that right to have a bit of grace. But taking our chances tomorrow is vital, because, to be honest, I don't really see any way other than being ruthless that we can get 3 points. I think City are that good.
Yeah, I mean, it's one hell of a test. We know Man City's the toughest game of the season every time we look at those fixtures. So it is going to be tough. But, from our point of view, we have to try and, fancy ourselves. We scored in every home game last season. So we have to take that confidence into this season as well, and, expect to get a goal at some point. It's just whether defensively we're going to have enough to keep them out, from scoring 2 or 3 or even 1 goal. So I think there's 2 areas we're going to have to be really on top of our game. Like we've already mentioned, we're going to have to be so clinical. And, Bowen, I'm looking at him especially, again, to be the one to be clinical, because, you look at the likes of Benrahma, Fornals, Antonio, either of those 3 that are going to be playing up there, they're not clinical. They're not as clinical as Bowen. So there's that aspect. And then obviously, as it always will be when you play City, is the defensive, can you keep them out? We saw Crystal Palace, last season hold them to a 0-0 draw at Selhurst Park. Played really well defensively. Didn't have too much attacking threat, but they were very solid defensively. And we're going to have to get lucky as well. But let's just look a bit more, tactically. Mike, we'll start with yours. Your kind of predicted XI and why you've chosen this kind of system, and what you think, whether you think this is the best thing for us to do, whether you think it's just Moyes, what you think Moyes will do, and how you kind of see us going into the game. I think you're on mute again, Mike.
I am. I think we'll go for the kind of the 3 at the back, mainly because when we play City, he's going to want that little bit of extra in defence. What it also means is that by putting Jono on the left, that means you have a better defender, so someone who can deal with Mahrez a lot better. It has you could argue, maybe equal level of pace. Also then means when we get possession, if Jono pushes forward or Jono sits, that means Cresswell can be, can underlap and kind of move forward. This is where I think Cresswell actually, this is Cresswell's future position for West Ham, regardless, is only in this spot, really. I don't think he offers enough for us at left back to do it over a season. So where he can move into this, I think it works because he can work with an underlap. He can get the ball in much deeper positions where he tends to have more room, so he can put in more dangerous crosses. This is where we saw the best of Cresswell 2 seasons back, where there was lots of people waxing lyrical about him. When we went to a back four, the importance, or shall we say, the cutting edge in that final third almost dissipated, unless it was a set piece. So playing in this one does give us an outlet essentially in that side, because we're going to, I just see us play Fornals and we'll play Jono there, because that's going to help to counteract, which is kind of ridiculous to think that them two in themselves are going to counteract against just Mahrez and Walker, considering they both are very pacey players. Fornals isn't necessarily, he's not blessed with pace, let's be fair to him. And Jono, whilst he has decent pace, he's not, again, got the pace of Walker. So I think that left-hand side will be set up to defend. Also, Soufal will be there to get up and down. But again, Cancelo is great in that side. Grealish is obviously going to constantly pester him, which he did last game as well. Grealish had a really good second half against us. So again, it's that whether we can get Soufal in a position where he can get tight to Grealish, because we've seen it in the past when he has got tight to him in games. He kicked the crap out of him for 90 minutes, but he's done a really good job against him because he's just hit him, not giving him a chance to turn. It's every time he's turned, he's there and he's attacking him. Obviously the midfield is the midfield, and we haven't got the additions to change it. I don't see us putting 3 in midfield with, say, Flynn Down sitting in there and going maybe 2 up top with 1 sitting behind. I just don't see it. So I think obviously we'll have Fornals play because of just his work rate on that left-hand side. Bowen is just a given. He's going to play there. And Antonio, again, if Skamaka is being talked around as not being fit enough, then we only have Antonio. If we don't have Antonio, obviously with Bowen, but you just look at that, well, if we have to play Bowen then, and we're really going to lose, again, a lot of what we can do. I think without Antonio in the team for this game, we don't have a chance. It's as simple as that. Even if Bowen is playing up front, I know some will say that he can probably create something. He probably could, but you've got to look at the games like Rangers where we didn't have Antonio. We played like Bowen up top on his own. We lose so much. So Bowen's a great player to run into space, but he's not necessarily the one to stay in the middle, play off of, and kind of build your attacks and so on. So I think that formation probably gives us, bearing in mind the players we have at the moment, the best balance and the best defensive control, because it is a team. Cresswell likes to get quite compact and quite close to the centre back as it is anyway. So in possession we can move into a back 4 at any time if we want to, because obviously we can slide from side to side. If you look at it, because even Dawson, if he played right centre back, has played right back. So out of possession, if Soufal pushes up, that team can drop into a back 4 with Soufal playing ahead of Dawson as Dawson comes over to that right-hand side, and obviously they all shift one position across. Midfield is going to be tough, as always. I think in an ideal world, we would have had 3 in there, with Downs also sitting in there. But I think, ideally, I think we would have had another midfielder on the bench, other than Coventry. Just because then we could try to, we're not going to suffocate them, but at least have 3 solid players who will sit in front of that defence, and we'll just like terriers, basically, flying into everything, breaking things up, and making it very difficult for them to play how they want to play. So for me, the 3 is the best formation for us, because we can get very compact. We can get 5 players essentially in our box defending. The only problem is the outlets going forward. This is why I've said before that we don't have the players in which to support this formation long term, because as Sloth pointed out, we haven't addressed pace. And in midfield, we all like Souček, but I think we'll all admit he's not necessarily the most creative when the ball's at his feet to open up a game. Rice can do it at times, but again, he's not still there yet. So without having a player who can maybe open it up, or is that a little bit unpredictable in what they do in the final third as to the positions they pick up, then you can kind of question it. Someone like Gallagher is a prime example. In that game you mentioned about against Palace, his passing wasn't that great. He didn't really do, when he was on the ball and in possession, he wasn't necessarily that impressive, but off the ball he was incredible. But the amount of pace and the amount of determination he had in which to press and to put pressure on City in possession was a great thing to watch. Having a player like that who could potentially win the ball higher up, that also has a bit of pace about them, can put you into very good positions. I just think as we say, we need to be very compact, and when we get the ball, we have to be methodical and clinical when a chance comes our way.
Yeah, I mean, I've just realised if we take a look here at the other predictions that me and Sloth have done, that we've got the same team, Mike. So we kind of see, we'll take a look here, how ours compare to Sloth. Sloth's gone for a back four as well. So yeah, just to reiterate what I think is going to happen, I think it will be a back three, like you mentioned there, Mike. I think at the moment we don't really have any other choice because of Dawson's fitness as well, and just being able to withstand City with a back four like that. I just don't think we'll be able to, unless you had, say a Fornals playing left wing back instead or in front of a Cresswell. That's the only way I could see Moyes going for a back four. And yeah, like you mentioned, we lack pace to play this. When you have Fornals out on the left, it kind of depletes what we could do on that side. We've seen what Bowen can do from the right. If we had a similar, caliber of player on the left, we would have such a great opportunity to play the system. And yeah, I think Johnson left wing back, he can do a really good job there. He'll be very solid defensively and gives Cresswell that, security of playing as the left centre back as well. And Rice, he's going to have an absolutely massive game, not just in the defensive contribution, but actually setting us off on our counter attacks, because he is the only one really that I can see being able to pick up the ball in those deeper areas, kind of breaking through their midfield, and then, getting the ball to the likes of Fornals or Benrahma, whoever kind of plays there. And then we can transition to the likes of Antonio and Bowen. So, Sloth, just to get your kind of opinion, because you've gone for a back four here, is this what you want to see, or is this what you kind of think Moyes will play?
It's more kind of what I think we might play. I don't know if it's just kind of the fitness of the centre backs overall, the fact that Diop we know doesn't really want to be there, but I just kind of think playing a four at the back, we've got a bit more flexibility to make changes, a bit more cover if anything goes wrong. And to be honest, I think that's probably our best kind of chance in terms of... We kind of mentioned Souček's lack of creativity there, and I couldn't agree more with you. However, I do think we're kind of underestimating the fact that against City, we have an absolute battering ram who will win everything in the air. And if you've got someone like Fornals, Benrahma, or Bowen who can take those knock-ons, lay it forward to Antonio, that's worth its weight in gold. I'm not saying he's going to carry the ball forward 30 yards and hit a screamer, but I do think that when you look at Rice and Souček, those two can kind of sit back a bit more. I have no doubt that Souček will look to release other players as quickly as he can. Rice, I'm sure, will probably try and do the same. But for me, I think with our current squad size, with some of the fitness issues and want-away players, or even players who are looking to move on, I can see us going with that sort of formation, particularly as we aren't really blessed with the pace, as I mentioned. I would like to see Johnson and Soufal as our kind of win backs, but to be honest, I still don't really think, unless Johnson produces a Lyon away performance, I'm not sure. I just think we're looking at Mahrez and Walker on that side, and I think they could. I think they could potentially just tear Cresswell apart. Like that sort of pace against them is against Cresswell is frightening.
Yeah, I think that's why again the back three suits, because then you could, in a way, when we defend, if needs be, that can move into a back four with Cresswell and Jono just sitting essentially in the left back position, or left back and left wing back, whereas we defend, so they can double up on that side if needs be, whilst everyone else switches across and in. Also in midfield, you also look at that. I can imagine it going in a bit more of an asymmetric shape as opposed to Fornals on the left. I can see Fornals dropping in there to kind of be the free.
I think it's definitely the better formation for us. I just think that given our lack of depth, I think it's probably the wrong choice to lead with, especially against City. Let's face it, it's not a dead rubber, but it's a chance to go out, play our own game, or it's a bit of a weight off the shoulders. And I think you're probably better off not risking the squad or risking picking up an injury or something with the situation as it is, in comparison to playing a five and risking an injury to someone like Johnson or risking losing an extra player who can play centre back.
Interestingly, none of us went for. Obviously, you went for the same arguably the same formation we played last time played City, but none of us went for Lanzini, which obviously has been a player that we've all talked about helps hold possession. Obviously, this is going to be a game that maybe where we do need to retain possession, so there's always the chance that, in fact, that we do see Sloss formation, but you maybe don't see Benrahma. You see Lanzini in there. We go with a free. That is my one concern, is that if we don't. The one concern of not playing a free in midfield, so rather than 4-2-3-1, it'd be a 4-3-3, is that you lose the battle with City already, because they're going to have three in there. Obviously, you're going to have Rodri just sitting, and then you've got to contend with, obviously, Kevin De Bruyne, most likely Bernardo Silva as well. So you've got those two guys that will just consistently are perpetual motion in itself, and Rodri is just that anchor point. So when you only have two in there, then you're always outgunned and outnumbered. So the moment you go into press, then obviously you create a space for them to pass into. So it's the thing to be mindful. If we are going to play a two in midfield, that's where we're going to struggle, because they are going to create an overload there. It's just they've got a natural overload anyway, because they're going to have three. If we do go for the five, then I do see when we defend that Fornals is going to have to do a lot of work, in the sense of he's going to have to move inside and sit almost alongside Rice and Souček to make a free. Even Bowen's going to have to come slightly in as well. And then from there, you can maybe create your free in midfield to kind of try and help that. But it's then, where are your outballs? That is always going to be the problem against City. Obviously, just hitting it long to Antonio is going to be hit and miss, not because of Antonio's quality, just because of it depends on the quality of the ball that's played into him as to how you can break out from that. Because if the ball's going to be hit high, then you're probably going to say that the likes of Laporte is going to maybe win a good chunk of headers, or even Ruben Diaz are going to win a good chunk of headers. So it needs to be either to his chest or to his feet. But again, you've also then got to be very sharp and quick to get in there to collect the ball and then move. So
that's why I think using the height of Souček is so important. Like using the height of Souček and Rice. I know the aerial side of things isn't his best asset, but having a three of Rice, Souček, and Fornals, it not only gives you work rate, but it gives you two players with real ability on the ball and just an absolute battering ram. So that would be my approach. But you know.
Yeah, I personally would prefer a three in midfield, like a 4-3-3. I'm just concerned about the fitness of Dawson. He's not really played this preseason, played in the last game. Obviously, I know he played with injury last year, which was commendable. It's not a great way to start moving into the season at the start, especially against City.
I've said it all summer. I just don't really understand what the decision making was, because with Aguerd, that's a great signing. However, you risk an injury, and you risk having a place there, we're a man down essentially, and
with two, because of Bonner's knowing it was what we also said. We were very vocal saying at the start of the season that to assume that Bonner's just going to come straight back into the team is naive.
Madness.
And we've been proven right, because we said he's unlikely to be fit at the start of the season, even a month in. And as it looks like at the moment, that is true, because he's still playing the under-23s, or under-21s as it is now. By all accounts, it doesn't sound great how fit he has been in those games. He also made a mistake which resulted in one of the goals scored against them the other night. So there's a lot of ring rust there with him, and it's going to take a time for him to get fit, to the point of, by time maybe November time comes around, which could be when we get Aguerd back, he might be getting to a point where he's in a position ready enough to play, and then we get him ready for the World Cup, and then it's the final 6 months of his contract, and he's gone. When we could have potentially gone out and got a left-sided centre-back who is ready or was ready to start the season. I mean, this is part of our problem, in that we've maybe looked at a couple of players and said they should be ready, and they haven't. And we've maybe wasted time on a few targets, which has put us in a position where we're going to start the season with the same 11. Unless Downs plays, we're starting with the same 11 that we finished last season with. We're not the only team to do that. So, as much as it will hurt people to say, we're the only team going into it doing this season, we're not. Leicester haven't signed anyone. So, and they've actually lost players from their 11 last year. So we are starting with the same 11, granted. Some of our activity has hindered that, which obviously means next week is where we're going to start seeing probably the team Moyes more wanted to have to start. But again, it's that problem around pace is our big thing. Even when we look at the bench, if you look at the bench on tomorrow, it's either going to be Fornat, it's either going to be Benrahma or Lanzini's on the bench, potentially even both, if it's the kind of formation that maybe yourself and I put up, Frankie. So yes, it does bring a bit of creativity, but again, Scamacca's not on the bench, don't have a striker to come in, so there's still some question marks there. There's still some frustration that we're going into the season as this is, because I think had we maybe been a little bit quicker, maybe not waited on a couple of players that didn't really show much intent, we could have been going into this first game maybe with a bit of a more solid structure, and maybe players that are in fitness, as opposed to we're hoping Dawson can get through the 90 minutes. We are hoping the 4-3-3 settles, because it hasn't looked great in pre-season as well.
Yeah.
And again, we're also hoping that we've got enough creativity to cause City problems, and we're hoping that the pace of Antonio hurts them and Bowen can do good runs. And that's the problem. We're talking about the pace of one player hurting a team as opposed to the pace of multiple players. Now, Maxi's going to change that hopefully next week for us, and then maybe one or two others will come in which will also help that. But it is concerning. When we talk about pace, or the pace of a player hurting a team, we're talking about only one player in your whole squad. That in itself, to me, is
I think going into this one, I think offensively we do have the capabilities to score. I think we showed that last season with this attack and the players that we do have. We will most of the time won't have a problem scoring, especially in games like this where we can set up more defensively, and it suits how Moyes likes to play. Yes, it's very much dependent on Antonio and Bowen being, the focal point of our attack and finishing the chances when they come. But, on the flip side, we do have Bowen. We have that outlet. We can use it. That's what we should be looking to do. It's like it's our best asset going forwards. Why would we not want to use it? I know it would be lovely to have like a player like Cornet, for example, on the other side, but City will be looking at us thinking Bowen is the one to stop in that attack and Antonio is the one to limit. So
funny enough, I know what, I don't actually think City are going to think that. I think City are actually going to do what they're going to think is we do not give away set pieces where we can avoid it. We don't give away corners. We don't give away free kicks. I don't think they're necessarily worried about the two players. I think they're more worried about that if we give away a set piece, they have players that can hurt us more at set pieces than maybe an open play.
That's part of the reason why I wouldn't really play Lanzini, and I would put someone like Fornals just to cover that work rate. I don't think Lanzini's a workhorse. I think Fornals is much more improved in that area. But from set pieces, I think it's by far our best chance of beating them is just it's the bit of the old Stoke approach, but like
it's a bit, isn't it? It's play for the second balls, play for the set pieces.
I mean, apart from Haaland, the only real kind of strength they have is that centre back pairing, and De Bruyne is 6 foot, but you wouldn't really call him great in the air. So I do think having set pieces is going to be key for us to get anything tomorrow.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a massive thing, hasn't it, for us? It's been a massive thing over the past, especially the first season under Moyes when we finished 6th. It was huge having Souček and stuff in the box. We really, really took advantage of, especially corners. So I still think Man City Pep Guardiola will be looking at that game last season. And, I think from our point of view, Moyes will be kind of identifying the same thing in that if we can get those opportunities to break and, counteract their high line with Bowen, especially, that is the way to get a goal. I think set piece, it would, it'd be great to kind of look at that as one of our, most reliable resources in terms of getting a goal. But I don't think it is. I actually don't think we've been that amazing at set pieces, if I'm being honest, especially last season. We've got the players to have that threat, but actually I think being on the counter with the likes of Bowen is probably our best chance, and just being clinical in those moments where we need to finish in front of goal. So defensively, whether it's a back 5 or a back 4, I am very scared because, having Aguerd in there would have been so crucial. And, as much as we say, it would have been nice to kind of make another signing at centre back, I don't think we could have predicted that. I think Moyes would have gone into this game in a back 4 if Aguerd was fit, and we had him and Zuma. And I think all of the fans would have been so much more confident if we had that centre-back pairing. But because we don't, and because of Dawson's fitness and Ogbonna as well, which, again, that was naive. 33, 34 years of age. He was obviously not going to come back and be ready to play, the first game of the season. So I think there's two ways of looking at it. But focusing on this Man City game with what we have, it's interesting because, last season we did have 2 results against them in a back 4. So it kind of depends how you look at it. We can play a back 5 and try and soak up that pressure and counter-attack. We can also do that in a back 4. But, like we mentioned before, putting a Lanzini or Fornals in the middle just to give us a bit more possession and hopefully kind of reduce the amount of turnovers we have. But that's incredibly difficult to do against Man City. Regardless, you can play a 4-3-3 and have, technical players like Lanzini, but then how do you get out? You can keep the ball for a bit, but then that's when the lack of pace becomes an issue because you're kind of hitting it over the top and you've only got Antonio or Bowen, and then you're kind of just back to square one. So it's just going to be a really tough game. There's a few different tactical ways we could approach it, but at the end of the day, Man City are slightly different now. They've got Haaland. That's the main thing to address as well. We saw against Liverpool as well. He will get chances, but like you mentioned, Mike, he hasn't actually scored a header. So that's a really interesting stat. But
he does hit the ball like he's got a traction engine in his foot. So
that is true.
Well, I think the thing is as well, exactly, Alan Partridge. They are going to have more of a focal point. So it does mean they're going to have to change a bit. So, the last Pep team that really had a proper focal point as a centre forward was Barcelona with Ibrahimovic. and it didn't quite work. Now, I'm not saying that Haaland's not going to work and he hasn't learned his lesson. And I think Haaland is a different personality to Ibrahimovic as well. Is maybe less opinionated on how he should play or how players should play around him. But it does mean that there's going to be a little less movement in terms of when we played and they had Jesus up front, who would drop, go wide, and so on. Haaland's going to want to probably operate more in that 18 yards, so it maybe gives us a little bit more of a focal point to be against. And obviously, when we have one striker, we'll always have, hopefully, two centre backs that are always going to be free to follow runners or to pick up on those loose balls. So, being positive around it, we are obviously going to have that advantage defensively. If they go for the one up front and we go for three at the back, we're always going to have that kind of two-man advantage, which means we can double up if we need to and try and suffocate the passes into Haaland. So arguably you could allow those passes to come in and then you surround and make it very difficult for that ball to stick. Obviously, we've made the point around the midfield is a big thing. If we go for the 4-3-3 like we did last time, so I think the first half against City last year, it was the 4-3-3 because we had Lanzini sitting in there.
Yeah.
That first half, we did quite well. Again, we was compact. We didn't allow them much space in front of our defence, and two real counter-attacks resulted in 2 goals. We ended the game with the 5 at the back, but again, that was because of subs. We had the way the game was going.
They were just overloading us in the wide areas, weren't they?
Yeah, but also, funny enough, going to the formation that we went into also provided more chance for them to do that because essentially it was then just Soufal on the right-hand side, just going against Grealish. Bowen wasn't necessarily his most protective self in that game. I think. Yeah, I don't think he probably got in there enough for Souček to help him against Grealish or even just the runs from Cancelo. And obviously, on the other side, you've got Mahrez as well. So I think going to back three, in some ways, it does concern me because if those our wingers are not dropping to cover, then it puts those fullbacks in a bit more of a predicament as to what they have to do. But again, if you keep bringing them back, it's going to be very hard to deal with. The other thing you can say is last year, I think we played 4 at the back against Liverpool. And we did very well in that game because we were brave in that game. We looked to always break their press. Obviously, we was 3-1 up before. Obviously, Zuma got his injury and then made it a bit squeaky bum time towards the end of the game. But I don't think there's a reason why we shouldn't feel like we should be brave on the ball. There's no reason why we shouldn't go for what Sloth has said about the 4-3-3. Because again, it gives you at least that base in midfield where you're not going to be outnumbered. You're going to have potentially players that are going to look to be on the ball, especially in Rice or Fornals or even Lanzini if he sits there. So it is going to work, but we are going to be really, really kind of dependent on whoever is in those wing positions that they kind of come inside to help out, because that's the other thing we've got to remember with City is their fullbacks also play as auxiliary midfielders. So sometimes you've got to bring your wingers inside and then you are reliant on whoever plays fullback to be incredibly brave and try and get into those spaces behind them and use your wingers to essentially hold those fullbacks inside when they do come inside to be part of that midfield. So what we did against very well against their kind of Trent as well. We allowed him to come inside and then we just kind of put a player on him and then just let Bowen kind of exploit when we could break that press. So it's tricky. There are so many things that we can do against City, I think, but there are so many ways they can combat us, and they are the masters of positional play. So the players that they've got and the intelligence they have on the ball is so impressive.
I think this is the toughest. I think this is the toughest game we'll have to kind of preview from a tactical point of view as well. Not just because of Man City, but because it's the first game as well. You know, we played pre-season, started with a back 4, and then the last couple of games we played a back 5. We've had injuries, we've had people go. You know, Masuaku was playing in our last pre-season game, and he's not even here anymore. So I think
But even next week could be even hard because we may have a couple of extra signings we have to try and think who are going to fit and where they're going to fit. So even next week could be a tough one for us to do.
That is true, yeah. I think
first 5 games, I think it's going to be really tough for any of us to kind of see to work out what the patterns of play are going to try and be and what the formation is, and even what maybe the third 11 is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
But this is probably at the start of the season, right? It's actually that's the exciting part of, well, who's going to play, how are we going to play? Obviously, it's pretty obvious in some ways because we haven't got anyone really to start who's new.
Yeah.
But I think from next week we'll have that excitement of, who's going to play? Is he or isn't he? I think that's going to be more next week. This week is that free hit.
Yeah, exactly. I think with this, this week we're unlikely to see Scamacca or Cornet, and obviously Agaird's injured as well. So those 3 kind of big signings from the summer aren't here. So hopefully next week we might even have another sign in as well, and then Cornet and Scamacca should be in the squad, to be honest, for that game of Forest. But focusing on this one, lads, we've gone through what we think. There's probably 100 ways we can try and play against City, but the outcome will probably 99% be the same. Let's go through our predictions. To be honest, me and Mike are slightly less optimistic than Slough. We've gone with 2-0 defeats, but Slough, you think we're going to nick a 1-1?
Yeah, I just think we've got maybe 1-1 was the wrong. Maybe it was 2-2 that I should have gone for, because I think we could concede, but I do think we're enough of a threat in the air. I think we're enough of a threat on the counter to get a goal or 2. To be honest, I'd be happy with a point. I think that'd be a fantastic result. But I'm being the optimist for a change, which is feels pretty good. I'll be honest. I do think that we have enough goals. We know we do, but we can go if we can go about our game and just bully Man City. Hope they have a bit of a slower start to the season, and if we really throw ourselves at every 50-50, throw ourselves at every kind of aerial ball, I think we can get something. Whether that's 1 point, whether that's 3, I think we'll have to see.
One of the equalisers in this, guys, is something we haven't talked about, is how much referees have let games flow. So some of the free kicks that got given away last time are not going to happen. I think even the one that got given against Grealish, which resulted in Soufal's own goal, which got the equaliser, it's not likely to get given, at least in this first week anyway. So in some ways, I mean, maybe the physicality we can bring to the game might actually be, for once, not punished whenever a City player goes to the floor, because they are allowing things to go. A lot.
I don't know. I think Mitrovic's collapse earlier was pretty shocking. I'm not sure I really buy this kind of thing that I've seen going around where people are saying, the physicality's back in the game. And I think, did you miss?
I don't think it's back at all. But it's opening up a little bit.
Did you miss the big Serbian man fall to the ground like he'd been shot? Although, to be honest, it was really, really refreshing to see Liverpool get a taste of their own medicine, like someone going down basically because there was contact. And can I just say, before the season starts, one of my pet peeves is when people go, "There's contact." Contact is not a foul. Contact does not make it a foul. If there's contact in the box, okay, what does that mean? He touched his foot. Okay, it's called football. Like, you're allowed to touch someone's foot. If someone stands on your toe, do you suddenly go, "Ah!" Like, it's not a foul. It's ridiculous. So, would I like us to get one of those decisions tomorrow? Yes. Would I feel good about it at the time? Yes. Would I go on Match of the Day, sit there and go, "Oh, well, I don't know about that one"?
Yeah,
I would. Like, it's yeah. I don't know about this physicality's back in the game, but I would like to see. maybe we can get a big Czech Republic centre mid boss through for get his shirt pulled back. But
yeah. I don't think it's necessarily the physicality. It's that less of the tackles last year, or less of the, let's just say, contact that was made last year that resulted in fouls haven't been blown up so far.
Yeah.
And also the players initiating contact who have then gone down haven't then got the foul that they thought they would, which they would have got last year, haven't necessarily been blown up in some cases, not all, but in some and in most cases from the games I've seen so far. So
that Chelsea penalty was also.
Yeah, I was going to say there's been
I
a few
didn't
already.
see a penalty at all, so I can't comment on that. But
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
In the other games, there were contacts that were made, which would have been a penalty, which would have been a free kick last year that wasn't. And we know City are the masters in buying free kicks and fouling and getting away with it. So maybe, as you said, like with Liverpool, they'll get a little taste of their own, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, yeah, I'm thinking 2-0 with you, Mike, as well. I think they will. You know, they've played the Community Shield last week. Their fitness levels are going to be higher. They've got the options off the bench, which we don't have. So unless we get in front like last year by a couple goals, I think we'll struggle. And if they kind of go 1-0 up, it'll be really tough to get back in the game. But if we score first, then it's it's all to play for. We're good enough to then sit in and have that threat of getting a second goal. So the one thing I'm kind of fearful is of actually that Liverpool result today. Pep Guardiola is going to already be seeing that as a huge chance to go 2 points clear. It's the first game of the season, but it's still a massive thing for the title race. So yeah, it's going to be a tough game, but Premier League's back. We can get excited again. Hopefully a few more signings before the end of the window as well. But yeah, it's going to be a tough game. Doesn't get tougher than this really, other than probably playing him away. So it's good to be back anyway. Good to have the Premier League back and good to have West Ham back. So hopefully
if we do lose, guys, and we do lose quite bad, not necessarily a bad thing because it's going to really rile up Moyes to push to get us signed in. Yeah. So the silver cloud and the silver lining to the cloud. If we do take a bit of a tonkin tomorrow, it's the fact that it might.
It's not a bad shout. Actually, yeah.
I'll remember that as I cry into my pint glass at the end of the night.
Yeah, exactly. And just staring at the bottom of it. We might get a signing.
Well, after losing to Rangers, we signed Scamacca. So if we lose to Man City, then who knows who will sign. We don't know.
We're gonna get Neymar with that. Then. Lost to Rangers, we said our level now has to be Scamacca. If we lose to City, right? We need to go there now.
I'll sit there with my picture frame of Sangare, just.
Yeah.
I don't remember Sangare. I might now go and get one though. That would be quite funny. So
just go get a PSG shirt with Sangare on the back. It's fine. So PSV, not even PSG, even.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Well, hopefully we have something positive to talk about. We'll either be back tomorrow evening or on Monday to discuss the match, and we'll probably discuss some transfer news as well that's going to evolve next week. Fingers crossed we can put in at least a good performance and, the levels are there going into the season and we don't just, roll over, which I don't think we will. We haven't done that under Moyes yet. It's rare that we lose by more than one goal. Touch wood. Touch wood. But, yeah.
We are really tempting fate, aren't we?
But yeah,
I'm just looking forward to tomorrow. Win, lose or draw, I'm looking forward to going to the football, sitting down with my dad and watching the game. I'm just looking forward to getting back in the stadium. So the result, it's a free hit. It's slightly immaterial to me, this one. I'm just looking forward to being back and watching West Ham. That's the main thing for me.
Exactly.
And 3 points would be lovely.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's a free hit. Even with the squad situation, it's probably better we have Man City now. If we had like Forest at home or something, the expectation to win, and then we didn't. Then, we saw it a couple of seasons ago against Newcastle. So, yeah, it's a free hit. Let's just enjoy West Ham being back. An increased London Stadium, 62,500 as well. I'm sure the atmosphere will be good for at least the first 5 minutes before they score. But we'll
before the
enjoy it
gets opened.
Yeah. But yeah, that's going to be it for our preview. Make sure to follow us over on Twitter if you haven't already at Babbling Irons. And yeah, we'll either be back tomorrow evening or Monday with another live stream for you guys. But yeah, I guess fingers crossed, lads. Hopefully we do get a result. If not the end of the world. And yeah, we'll see how it goes after that. But one thing left to say.
Yep.
Come on, you Irons.
Irons.